It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Greetings, fellow human beings, and also other species that happen to inhabit the earth that may live or may not live with you. Welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Cythia McDonald, and today's topics are hot, hotter, and hotter, even from the hotter and hotter from last week when I did this before. So yeah. And I also want to say that this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. Now, around this whole round table, not necessarily in Camelot, I'm joined by two other skeptocrats, humanists, people who have something to say today. And I'm going to start with my far left person that is having something to say. My friend from up north beyond the sky in the northern lights. No, you're below the northern lights, but you're like above, up and away. Neil, the 604 atheist. Hey Neil, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing, Cythia?
I am peachy keen jelly bean. Who wants a jelly baby?
Well, I got some right here if you do want. So
Nice. Can we like pass it through like the windows? Like, do we have that like technology to like?
Don't think that's possible yet.
Okay, well, we're still working on transport technology that we can actually beam jelly babies from one person to another. Until then, we just have to deal with big shipment.
Well, for now, I'm just going to use my fingers to put them in my mouth. So there you go.
Okay, that works too. And joining us, this is the first time that we actually got a chance to do a show together. But Josh Etner,
mispronounced by both hosts that I've gone on with.
Oh my God!
We're just gonna make that a tradition. Like honestly, I mispronounce it for like the first 5 years of my life. I look at the enter key and go like, that's how you spell it. That's how you say it. So I had 5 years. We've been like Facebook friends for like 6 months. You're ahead of the game further ahead of the game than I was.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I
don't take offense.
But the thing about it is, I think that I have totally omitted the en that's between like your last name.
Honestly, there's one too many letters. I can just nix that, make it easier for everybody. Next time I come on, it'll be Josh Enter, just to make it easy for the audience, make it easier for the hosts. I'm all about accommodating you people because I love this show so much.
Oh, and Josh, even though that I completely botched your last name, we love you too, despite your affinity for Green Bay. Anywho.
Oh, shots fired.
Already.
Look, she just said that I have good taste. That's all.
No, I did not. But anywho, we're going to get to it. We're going to get into today's topics. Yeah, we're going to get into today's topics before I say anything else, and
it gets me to storm off.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Storm. So today's topics, we're going to be talking about musicians that can Spotify misinformation. You like that? I did. Also, we're going to talk about the new French law that bans conversion therapy. Very important. And also, we're going to talk about bigots and books. Bigots and books. And finally, we're going to talk about it's either Christian nationalism or it's democracy. So, shall we get into it? But before we get into it, I just want to let everyone know that, as with all of our shows, links to today's topics and the news we discuss are available in the description below. And a reminder that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the nonprofit's Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time.
Dun, dun.
Is that like the ending on a high note?
It sounded like it to me.
Okay, let's go with that. All right, well, let's get into it, guys. Let's go with segment 1. And I believe that, Josh, you are actually taking us in.
As the person that looks most likely like you would listen to Joe Rogan, we elected me to do this segment. So it's no secret that Joe Rogan has been spreading misinformation this entire pandemic. He's been like against face masks, against vaccinated children, telling to help people, if you're healthy, you don't need the vaccine. You can just go and live your life. It's only for the sick people, completely neglecting the fact that healthy people that get COVID can still spread it to people that are not so healthy. A little factor he tends to dismiss. And then recently he had Robert Malone, the so-called inventor of the mRNA vaccine, on his podcast. And despite the fact that this guy has not had anything to do with the vaccine for like over 30 years. Mm-hmm. So you really can't say that he's up to date on everything. He's had his hand on everything. Yes, he had a little bit of something, but it's like 30 years, a lot can happen. And he had him on his podcast spreading misinformation. Finally, Neil Young is like, screw this. I'm getting my music off of Spotify if they're going to keep platforming this guy. And there's been a couple people that have followed suit with him.
And more coming too, I'll guarantee you.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So just want to let everybody know that this particular article that we're coming from was actually in the Rolling Stone magazine that was dated on January the 12th by E.J. Dixon, and it's called "A Menace to Public Health: Doctors Demand Spotify to Put an End to COVID Lies on Joe Rogan Experience." So basically what happened was, it's like, as Josh talked about, Joe Rogan has been really off the chain lately with a lot of his misinformation that he has been, utilizing and showing on his show. And then he brought in Dr. Malone, and also Dr. Peter McCullough, who's a cardiologist who's also been, very anti-vaccine, and also on the misinformation train. And you all know that, like, Joe Rogan recently made a deal with Spotify for over $100 million in order for him to bring his show and have him be basically the anchor, so that Spotify can really start to tout themselves as a platform for a podcast. Now, and because of course, like he's like huge, like he has like the number one podcast like ever in life.
11 million listeners on average.
Yeah, like over 11 million listeners a day, actually tune into his show. And but like the problem is like, with his particular rhetoric, or even bringing people on who have very problematic messages concerning COVID and vaccines and the like, that you have more like musicians and other content creators that are actually pulling their content off of Spotify, and it's causing a bit of a kerfuffle over there, because Spotify, I believe, is like slated to lose about $2 billion by the time that this show airs. They would have lost over $2 billion from the content that has been.
It's because he doesn't understand the power that he yields with this platform. He, on his apology that he made a day or so ago, whenever the hell that was, he just touted it out as just him having conversation. He said that he'll have people that are on the side of the vaccines on, then he'll have people on like Malone on it to do anti-vax stuff. He's like, maybe I made a mistake of not having somebody pro-vaccine on right after, completely missing the point that when you platform somebody like that, it doesn't matter if you have them on right after. There are certain viewpoints that are just way too dangerous to platform. And like, we've had 20 years, we've had 3 Spider-Man that have explained with great power comes great responsibility, and he can't get that into his head on his podcast. You have that many listeners. there's going to be some people, you're definitely going to get the anti-vaxxers already set in stone. They're going to get the people that listen to science set in stone, but there is that middle ground of people that don't understand and they don't know how to get good information. So they're going to listen to him like, oh, this guy's a doctor. He invented the vaccine. So of course we got to listen to this guy. It's dangerous. And if he doesn't understand the power of the yields, he should be talking to comics. He should be talking to musicians. He should be talking about things that are beyond his scope of understanding. Because even having the conversation is dangerous.
Word, Neil, go ahead and jump in.
I
especially, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I mean, if he's going to have pro-vaccine people on after having the anti-vaccine people, they're already swayed by the arguments that came from the anti-vaxxer, especially if they were already predispositioned to be an anti-vaxxer. I have people like that in my life, for crying out loud.
Right.
And now you've got here in Canada, you've got that the whole truck convoy thing going across with the, you know, for the anti-vaxxing and anti-masking sort of stuff. Our freedom is being infringed upon, which is utterly ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, when you host people like that, you're already convincing folks with the so-called expert, right? But you know, I mean, like you said earlier, the guy hasn't been involved in mRNA style vaccinations for over 30 years or just about 30 years. So he doesn't know the progression of those specific vaccines. So I don't even know why you would consider him to be an expert at all.
And keep in mind too, when he was working on mRNA technology to develop, you know, to utilize in like a delivery system, because like
he claimed to invent it at one time.
Yeah, he claimed to invent it, but what ended up but what really happened is that he and another scientist, actually a team of scientists from the institutes that he worked at, actually conceptualized and did experiments using the lipid system to deliver mRNA technology into cells. I remember having a conversation with my mom because she was a lab tech for years. She started as a technician and then became a technologist. And she was telling me how she has like a bunch of books from like the 60s to 70s to 80s when she was actually, you know, studying to be a lab tech that talked about mRNA technology. It's just that at that particular time, they didn't have like they haven't conceptualized a delivery system yet in order for it to actually be able to rewrite, you know, code basically in the cell.
Be effective. Well,
exactly.
They don't
and
rewrite
so
code. They just give instructions on
right
how the cells can handle.
Okay. Code disease probably was a bad term, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you know, in order for it to be able to, you know, go into a cell so that it can actually give instructions to a cell to what to do when it encounters a particular virus. So like the foundations of mRNA technology were there way before Malone, and I forgot the other person that was doing the work with him, but they were but you know, and I remember like looking at another story about it when they were talking about this particular campaign that Dr. Malone has been on for misinformation, and one of his colleagues actually said that, you know, even when he worked with him, he seemed a bit unhinged. You know, he wasn't, you know, I don't want to like, you know, misrepresent anybody. This is just like, I'm just saying like this is what one person's perception of him when he was working with him.
I mean, he's not a psychologist, he's a different kind of doctor, but you can like understand where he's coming from on that. And just, but regardless of any kind of ego and all that kind of stuff, you can still be a good scientist and be a little bit eccentric, but he's not doing good science. He's promoting himself. And now we've had like 270 doctors, physicians, scientists, educators wanting to get rid of, not even necessarily get rid of Joe Rogan deplatform. They want those episodes gone, and they want more than what Spotify is doing as like a placate to everybody, where they're gonna put a little disclaimer in front of the episodes that there could be dangerous content here. I frequent some of the conspiracy theory subreddits to see what they're all going on about. It was my first exposure to Malone, and they're not going to care about that. They're going to go, oh, that's just what the guys say to get themselves out of trouble. They can put a disclaimer there, but the real information is after this disclaimer. So putting that isn't going to stop anything. It's very much just like Spotify trying to get him out of trouble. Joe Rogan's apology seemed to miss the point in that he kept on saying, like, eventually the science is going to back him up, because these things were all said to be wrong at one point, and then the science caught up to his baseless theories, which he was only giving like half truths on everything. So like, if you
his Instagram
post, where he was going off about how all these things were said to be false, and then they caught up to it. He's ignoring like variants and all the science and everything that's evolved in this pandemic. It's very dishonest, or at the very least.
Neil, what were you going to say?
I'm just kind of, I was shocked to find out that one of the people I really admire, Dwayne Johnson, kind of spoke up in defense of him as well. It's kind of like, Rock, no.
Yeah.
You smell what the Rock is not cooking right now.
Joe, let me tell you, when I was like, like perusing for additional information concerning like, Joe Rogan's I'm sorry 2022 post, which wasn't an apology. I didn't perceive it as an apology at all. He was just saying, well, maybe I could do something different, but
maybe it was clarification on his thought process.
Sure, let's go with that.
I think the other doctor I'm trying to remember, was that the Dr. McCullough?
No, Dr. McCullough was the other person that has been touting misinformation. That's Dr. Peter McCullough. He's a cardiologist. No, there was a specific doctor that his name escapes me for right now. I believe that the link of the story that I'm talking about is in the show notes, people. So make sure that you take a look at that. But it was another doctor that worked specifically with Malone that helped conceptualize mRNA delivery system technology with the lipid. But going back to The Rock, when he was saying that, bravo, brother, you know how he talked. Bravo, brother, I applaud you for saying. Wait, hold on, I actually wrote it down. Exactly what he said. He said stuff, and I'm going to go there. Oh yeah, he was saying, great stuff here, brother. Perfectly articulated. Look forward to coming on one day and breaking out to the tequila with you. Now, first off, I want to say that y'all don't need to be breaking out no tequila, because until you get your facts straight, I need you to have a clear head. Number one, okay? And also too, I was even thinking, and I mean, this may be like a low shot, but whatever. You know that The Rock has been is going to be in the new Call of Duty movie.
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah, there's going to be a Call of Duty movie, and so like The Rock, you got to have a platform like with 11 million followers to listen to, so that you can market your movie. So yeah, that may be a cheap shot, but I'm not below cheap shots here on the nonprofits, as we all know. But I also felt that was an issue. Specifically with any of these people that have a platform, have a voice, are known, even if they're like celebrities, or even if like science is not necessarily their wheelhouse. We have pretty much good information concerning the pandemic, the efficacy of vaccines, and what to do to protect yourself. And when you are basically acting as an apologist for somebody who has been utilizing their extremely large platform to tout misinformation, that is extremely problematic, and it is dangerous.
What do you think about these musicians using their platform to try and fight against us? We mentioned Neil Young. There was Joni Mitchell. I saw Crosby, Stills, and Nash were one of them. But I'm wondering if there's going to be any kind of impact with that kind of thing happening, because the podcast, his is more than weekly. He podcasts multiple times a week, so that's millions of downloads almost every single day. Versus you can be in the mood for Neil Young for a week, and then you won't touch it for a while.
Right, right.
It's like,
What?
and I don't know if he's even a part of the generation that's listening to Spotify as much. When we have, like, most of the people I know that would listen to Neil Young, they listen to him on records. So it's not like it's a big part of Spotify's audience doing that. I did see that they definitely lost a lot of money initially, and there was like this, I think it said like 30% drop in their stocks. But as soon as Joe Rogan did his apology, it went up another 10%. So it's like people are fickle on this issue, and I'd like to see bigger celebrities doing something on this platform, because until that happens, I don't see Joe Rogan getting deplatformed or anything substantial happening to
he
him.
won't be. He won't be.
No, I mean, but like,
he basically got a slap on the wrist.
yeah, I think so.
Good
But
news, though,
go ahead, go
real
ahead.
quick.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor that Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young might do a reunion.
I mean, that might be a good thing for people your generation, I guess.
Oh,
my generation. Oh,
ooh, the shade, the shade
I don't
of
know.
it
I
all.
find their music boring, but that's fine. Everybody can like whatever they want to like.
each their own, I guess.
But
No comment on that. But but like, but I'm curious, like, just like what you were saying, Josh. Like, Neil, I want you to respond to that. Like, what do you think? With more musicians actually leaving, Spotify and taking their content off. Like, do you think that that's going to have like a larger impact on, you know, um, on Spotify itself, being this large
Well,
conglomerate, and then losing money because of Joe Rogan?
well, they've already lost a little bit of money for sure, and I know that there are more and more artists that are pulling their music from there.
Hmm.
I know, like I mentioned before we went live, that though they're not famous or anything, but a friend of mine's band has pulled their music because they totally disagree with what's happened there as well. I don't know if there's going to be enough people pulling their content from Spotify to make a difference, to be
Mm,
honest.
I wonder if it's even possible with the way record labels are, because there may be musicians that are completely
Yeah,
against
that's
it,
right.
but their recording contract would prohibit them from taking it away from
That's
Spotify.
right.
Like
right.
I know musicians, like one of my favorite bands is Judas Priest. They didn't have the rights to some of their older stuff for the longest time, and there's a record label really releasing stuff that they're constantly saying don't buy this stuff, but they can't stop that record label because they have the rights to those albums. So
Yep.
Yeah.
there's always something out of the band's control, and you can't really expect a record label who's there to make money to do the smart thing, because I think they're the only ones that are making money off of Spotify are the big record labels. Like I'm friends with some people in like smaller metal bands. They're like, Spotify's basically just to help us promote the music. We make jack shit off of the streams. Even if they're getting like hundreds of thousands of streams, they might get like barely a paycheck. And then when you have a band that you got to split the money through between,
Right.
it's nothing.
Right. Like, I know that like Neil is a musician, and
Yep.
also I've done recordings as well. And so, like, some of the music that I've done in the past is on Spotify too, but because they were released through a label, unless the label pulls it, I have nothing, I have
Yeah,
no
you have no
control over
control.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if, and as far as like a lot of musicians, even before this whole mismatch has happened, would complain about the possibility of profit or non-profit, no pun intended, coming from streaming
That was
sites.
intended.
Yeah, it was intended. But but basically not necessarily making money off of streaming sites in the first place. So as you mentioned, Josh, like, streaming sites like Spotify and the like are mostly places for people to promote their music, and see if they can get more people to know who they are, so that they can possibly make money off of like album sales and also performances, to be honest. But I am just like, really, I don't know. I'm really just like disappointed, and even like the to me, the laissez-faire attitude that like Spotify has kind of taken, or at least that it seems like they've taken, because their CEO was saying, "Hey, 270 educators in science and medical industry people and things of that nature. We heard you, so we're going to put this warning label on it, and if it seems like the content is really problematic, it can be taken off, but there's never like a actual actionable take as far as like, yes, it will be taken off. I believe that one of the things that the CEO stated in the blog that they actually run is that they publish their rules so that they can have more transparency when it comes to problematic content. But hey Wolfer, but the issue is that even if you even like I remember, I'm going to date myself here, when you first saw parental advisory labels on records and CDs and tapes, my generation, that that was not a deterrent for people to stop buying that music. It was more of a, to me, it was more of an edge, like a marketing like, ooh, what's a parental advisory on it? I'm gonna get it. Maybe I get two. You know what I'm saying? So like you mentioned before, this particular labels is, I don't necessarily think it's going to do much to persuade people not to consume this content. I don't know. But we're going to be moving on pretty soon. But I just want to go ahead and just get like some final thoughts. I'm going to start with you, Neil, and then you, Josh.
I'm with you there. I don't think that a disclaimer of any kind is going to change anybody's mind. It's up to the original host, Joe, to go back on and say something like, don't take my word for all this. Do some actual research yourself on legitimate scientific sites.
The thing is, Joe Rogan does say that he doesn't know anything and he's just an idiot. That's his words. I'm not calling him that personally, but and he is just an idiot. Nobody should listen to him. So he says that stuff, and then that's how he kind of gets around the guidelines. Is he acts like he's not promoting this stuff. He's just promoting conversation. It's one of the reasons why he skates by on all these things, is he's able to do it in the terms of just having a conversation, which we've all met those people in life who ask the insincere question when they're really just trying to peddle their insincere, dishonest point of view.
Word. And I just want to conclude with one of the last things that Joe Rogan said on his IG post when he, did his supposed apology, quote, "And even thank you to the haters, because it's good to have some haters. It makes you reassess what you're doing and put things into perspective." I think that's good too. And I just want to say that I personally live for the day that Joe can understand that getting pushback for hosting well-known misinformation spreaders on your platform that broadcast to over 11 million people daily is not hating. It's called, you're a media personality, and you should be responsible for the content that you actually have on your platform and what people say.
100%.
No, you're there.
Yes, ashe on that part. All right, people. Well, we're going to go ahead and move it along. But before we do that, I just want to tell you, dedicated viewers, that because of your dedicated viewership and spreading the good news of the faithless nonprofits, we have now over 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 subscribers. So thank you to both our veteran subscribers and welcome to our new subscribers. This yeah, I know, right? I love my sound effects. So, but this is a fantastic
It's all my
milestone.
fault, by the way.
What's it again?
It's all my fault, by the way.
Oh, yeah, your fault.
Oh yeah.
He said the 10,000 subscribers are him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all that's all Neil. So thank you for all Neil's followers for subscribing to the nonprofits. We appreciate it, and we
tell
thank
them to
you
go there every time.
Every time, I know. So thank you for Neil and the like to spreading the good news about us and actually helping us make this fantastic milestone. Now. So now that we actually hit 10,000 subscribers, we are actually able to do fundraisers. So if you're watching us now, you should see an icon below our window where you are able to give contributions to the atheist community of Austin. Every dollar raised helps us continue to minister the good news of the nonprofits and other ACA shows. It also helps us continue doing the work of spreading positive atheism. And
There
yes,
you go.
atheism is and can be positive. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, you can help us by getting there by doing so now. Ahora. Right now. So share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members, your co-workers, that neighbor guy that we talk about that you don't like, because we really know that that neighbor guy exists, and anyone and everyone. Let's get the word out there so that we can start helping those fundraisers. And once you have subscribed, click the like button below and set your notification bell to on. Okay, just like that. It goes like this. It goes on. You see how that works?
Yours is more explosive than mine is. Mine
Oh.
just went
Mine doesn't
on.
do that either.
Oh no, mine explodes every time I click it. Yup.
That might be a dangerous phone. Then I'd be careful.
Pull that away from your head.
It's metaphorical. It's metaphorical.
Oh,
So
metaphors go over my head. I didn't catch it.
okay, well, come on back. Come on back. It's only because you like Green Bay. So once you have done that and you get your notifications, you will be alerted every time there is a new episode of the Nonprofits that premieres every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And are you aware that the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Are you? Well, you should be. So check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts to listen to episodes of the Nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, and all other ACA shows so you don't miss a single episode. All right. I just want to say that I was absolutely livid with myself because every time that I am in the hot seat and I have to do that part, I always mess up secular sexuality.
Well, in my head, it's sexual sexuality.
Yeah, sexual sexuality. I have renamed it all types of stuff, and that is not the name of the show. It is Secular Sexuality. It is an awesome show. Christy and the gang, they do a bang up job. Make sure you guys check them out every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check out Truth Wanted on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And also, ACA Sunday. That's what we call it. That's Talk Heathen,
Better than
us,
church.
and Atheist Experience. Yes, instead of going to church, check us out, because let's face it, checking us out at the ACA and the ACA shows is way more informative than church. Moving right along. We're going to go into our next segment where I will now entertain you. Step in the right direction. Step in the right direction. Yeah, step in the right direction. Gonna step in the right direction. Yeah. And Neil, this is you. All you, honey. Take us in.
Well, apparently the news is telling us that France has now banned conversion therapy, to which I applaud very much so. They follow suit, as we here in Canada did that last January. We have also banned. It took 3 tries, but third time lucky, they always say, right? So, yeah, I mean, also now apparently the UN is pushing for a lot of other countries to do the same thing. It reminds me of the Christian therapy thing where they were trying to use faith and stuff to cleanse you of the gayness or the transness or whatever, to try and make you a hetero cis person of whatever ilk. But as we know, because I actually know somebody that was forced into it, This is going back a couple of years actually. They now deal with a lot of mental trauma because of this. Um, because they couldn't, you try to change somebody who they are at their core, and it's not going to work, and it's going to cause a lot of damage to them mentally from there on out, and it's going to be really hard to deal with people in general when you have this stuff floating around in your head, right? Like people trying to change you from who you actually are. So it's a horrible thing to have happen, and I'm just I'm kind of at a loss for words because it makes me feel good that more and more people are realizing this and banning this outright, because it should be banned outright.
Word to
Yeah,
your
I mean,
mother.
Absolutely. Like I really like how they're starting to handle this. I mean, France, that they're giving up to 2 years in jail, a fine of $34,000 if they're
Yeah.
attempting to do it on like an adult, and then what they deemed
I think it
a
should be more.
vulnerable person. But I think anybody that's going to get pushed into this situation and is having to accept that would be considered vulnerable in my book. But minors are considered vulnerable people. They can get up to 3 years in jail for this, and a $50,000 fine, which is a substantial amount, but I won't feel sorry for them for having to pay that.
Yeah, I
I think it should be
agree.
more.
Yeah, you know what? I don't necessarily have it, I don't have a problem with it being more. And, I'm of the mindset that, if even if like the conversions therapy especially comes from like, like a faith-based organization, they should be able to lose, their I'm not sure like if France has like tax exempt status for faith-based organizations, but if they do, they should lose that. And they should be able to lose whatever perks or even like, their status of being an organization in the first place. Because like it has been already proven, and there's different studies, which I will have, there's going to be links to that as well, that talks about how traumatic that conversion therapy can
It's
be.
like torture.
It is. It really is. And I know that like for a while back we did a show specifically about the United Kingdom. Even though like they didn't ban it, they were like in the talks of actually having the ban done in conversion therapy, not necessarily going completely through. But there was a reporter that masked himself, even though like he is gay, but he changed his name and said that he wanted to not have these feelings anymore. He didn't want to be gay any longer. And so he went to this faith-based organization in the UK where they did counseling
Mhm.
from a Christian perspective. And but the ones who were doing the counseling were not even like doctors, psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, nothing. These were like, other like ministers or what have you, or people who had like a theological background to, basically help you pray the gay away.
Because
And
there is no medical studies that show that this can actually
Yeah,
happen. So you can't
exactly.
find an
right,
actual doctor to do this kind of crap.
right.
And FYI, close personal friend of mine who wanted to rid himself of being gay as
Mm,
well, um, tried to get some therapy back in the day, and ultimately said that he feels he was influenced by just people around him that didn't understand who he was, and
right.
he ultimately ended up not doing that. But he went for a couple of sessions, and he said it was like the strangest thing trying to deny who you actually are.
Yeah, that's the thing that is missing in all of this when we're having that conversation, is basically denying who you are
Mm-hmm.
as an individual. Like no one chooses to be gay, no one chooses to be
Mm-hmm.
trans, no one chooses any of those. This is either you are that or you're not. And and I, like, and I always talk about like, how, I'm a medical case manager, and I work with I work with trans patients, I work with patients who happen to be gay, and I hear their stories about especially like when if they grew up in religious families, how they were ostracized or kicked out or even hated themselves for a very long time
Those are my French
because
days.
because of the pain and anguish that was afflicted upon their group of people that ostracized and rejected them because of who they are. And and it's very difficult to actually go through life and being this particular person. However, everywhere that you go, you are faced with, you're wrong, you're sick, something in your head is off, you
You're
need
broken.
help,
You're,
you need
yeah, yeah.
right, and all this stuff. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, the only thing that you really need is to be accepted for who you are as an individual.
Exactly.
Absolutely agree. You're speaking to the choir here, hopefully in the audience too. But I like that's going beyond France into, like Neil said, the UN's trying to get it banned in the world. I'm
Mhm.
hesitant to be optimistic about how it's going to go in some of the more religious countries. In one of the
Mhm.
articles that we talked about, they were talking about using exorcisms to try and cure people
Right.
of being gay. And like, that doesn't help on anything. I've seen exorcisms used towards trying to help people with mental health, and it
Mhm.
just makes things worse. And
Yep.
being gay isn't a mental health problem. It's just
No.
who you are. It's not a problem with you at all.
Right.
They even talked about how in some of this is the most extreme and this is the most disgusting thing I saw in the article, was to use corrective rape to try and cure people of being gay. And I
know.
thought that was that was the most disgusting thing I've ever read. Like, in areas where that can be considered practice or something that they're going to use to try to cure something that does not need curing. I like the idea behind the UN wanting to change this. I don't know how they're going to be able to actually enforce it on some of these more extreme cases.
Yeah,
Those people should be in jail or locked up for good.
Yeah, they
Advocating
really
for that kind of a treatment.
yeah, they really should. I mean, like, I know, like, people who were from different countries who are infected with HIV now because of that very thing. It was told that if another person who's infected with HIV happens to, force themselves upon a virgin, then then that particular disease is going to leave their body. No, no, that does not happen. The only thing that you're doing is, one, you're spreading the disease, and you're also traumatizing that person. And this is an act of violence. And and it's so infuriating to actually have read that whole event, that people do this. Like, they will force themselves on another person because they said, hey, you're displaying tendencies of being having affection for the same sex. We need to correct that, and the way that we need to correct that is raping you. Really?
Yeah. No. I know. I'm actually fighting back angry words right now.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
there's a few expletives that want to fly out of my mouth. I'm surprised I ain't did it yet, but fuck
Well,
that shit.
there's in our society we have those assholes that will say, like, maybe you're just a lesbian because you haven't had the right dick or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then it's going into society that doesn't understand science as well. Like, I'm not trying to say like everybody in like third world countries is ignorant, but like they don't have. So there are some areas of the world that don't have our understanding of science. So they're doing the corrective rate and stuff like that because they think that. I think there's some mindset that's going on the same thought process of like, if they have sex the correct way, I'm doing quotes for people listening on the podcast, the correct way, that they're gonna be able to fix whatever's problem with them, and that there's no scientific backing of that.
Right. Matter of fact, like, in a Cornell article, uh, where they actually studied some of the studies about conversion therapy. I'm just wanting to quote them. They said that after reviewing the research, we concluded that there is no credible evidence that sexual orientation can be changed through therapeutic intervention. Most
Right.
accounts of such most accounts of such change are akin to instances of faith healing. There is also powerful evidence that trying to change a person's sexual orientation can be extremely harmful. taking together the overwhelming consensus among psychologists and psychiatrists who have studied conversion therapy or treated patients who are struggling with their sexual orientation, is that therapeutic intervention cannot change sexual orientation, a position echoed by all major professional organizations in the field, including the American Psychological Association.
Uh, that sounds like a pretty good scientific study. Maybe that's what other countries should be employing. But we apparently, in one of the articles, they're talking about there are 68 countries that we know of that are still practicing conversion therapy, and they suspect that beyond just like the organizations, there's probably a little bit of this happening in every country around the world, just because we can't keep track of every instance. That's one of the reasons why religion's so harmful, because it touts this kind of ideology where you're made for one purpose. Your dick's supposed to go in vagina, it should not be going anywhere else. And they're constantly fed that stuff, so they see something that's wrong by their ideology and they feel like they have to fix it. Like some of them might have some twisted idea in their head that they're doing the right thing, they're doing God's work, but what they're really doing has zero evidence behind it, just like God, and they're just doing harm to people. Like these people, you see people that are getting married, they're gay and they get married in a heteronormative marriage, and they're miserable. I've seen interviews with people and they're like pretty much sexless marriages, because they're only done to like produce a few kids, and then other than that they're miserable.
Right, exactly. And
I want to touch on something that you said
go
earlier
ahead,
too,
Neil.
Josh, about third world countries not being as scientifically educated. Let's worry about the first world countries that are still not as scientifically educated as they should be as well. And anytime you want to look up information like this, you got to find a good source to do so, and not just click the first couple of things that pop up on Google.
That's right. Matter of fact, like it's only 20 states in the United States that ban conversion therapy, and like about 100 municipalities. Matter of fact, I believe that the District of Columbia is one of them that have done it, but we still have other states and municipalities where this was brought up that has a tendency to be a bit more theistically leaning, that have also officials, lawmakers, judges that also are theistical leaning, that have not been able to get this, who have touted their particular ideologies in this realm, and conversion therapy hasn't been banned. Matter of fact, any bans in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama are suspended due to a 2-1 decision by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, with Judges Britt Grant and Barbara Lagoa in the majority, and Judge Beverly Martin dissenting. So we still have like outliers, like in a first world country like this one, that is still, has like people who are, like in positions of power that also support this egregious practice. But we'll see as time goes on. This is definitely a story to watch. But let's go ahead and wrap this particular segment up. Neil, I'm coming to you to go ahead and give your final thoughts. Shoot.
My final thoughts is you cannot change somebody who they are at their core. Right. So I don't know why you ever thought you could. I don't know why you think somehow that your religion's going to help this person. It's just not help them, but change them, because it's not helping. Is what's actually happening here. You are further damaging another fellow human being by doing what you're doing, and that's really all I can say about that. If you guys have any other thoughts you want to say.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead with yours.
I'm pretty much going to be echoing what Neil said. Like, there's no proof that you can change anybody through conversion therapy. I definitely came in. This is supposed to be like a good step in the right direction, and I'm kind of a pessimist. And I brought it down a little bit, but I want to go out and say that the fact that France is doing this is hopeful. The fact that I'm a little skeptical that they can enforce it on the rest of the world, the UN can enforce it on the rest of the world, doesn't mean that we should take away from a step in the right direction with France.
Right, exactly. And one of our other nonprofits who wasn't able to be here wrote, "Here's to future episodes covering more conversion therapy bans and closing the gap so it's obsolete from contention. Shout out to J Mike.
Hell yeah.
Hell
word.
yeah.
Nicely said, J Mike.
Yes, nicely said, J Mike. I totally pilfered from your notes. And speaking of pilfering, let's take a break. I don't even know how pilfering is a break, but we're gonna go with it.
Take a break to figure that out.
Yeah, let's take a break to figure out how pilfer actually, relates to breaks. And then if you and then you can go ahead and watch this bad boy called a mid-roll so that you can see what you missed on other ACA shows if you didn't tune in.
It's just about how to be a person and how to be happy being it. I really, really love that answer.
That was a great answer. And I'd also like to point out that mental masturbation is the second best kind of masturbation.
I'm just going to go ahead and come clean right now. I have a toast fetish. I just love going around putting my face on people's toast and then just running away.
I don't want to be the one guy that came on here and had a really hot take about aliens and NASA and then just peace out, because that's weird. I think
You want to
there's
have
like
sex with aliens?
If you really care about freedom and liberty and children not getting harmed and free speech, and you care about these things, well, then drink your piss. Everyone, drink your piss.
If you hit it, you get more time.
Mike, the Holy Spirit says we're not going to play that kind of game with you.
Okay, well, you tell the Holy Spirit he can go f*** himself.
like the miracle stuff. You still doing that these days? You still because are you keeping the social distancing? Like that's what I really want to know. Is that
You tell me, Dan.
Oh shit. Okay.
I apologize, but I couldn't help.
That water to
Oh yeah, the water was genius. Shout out to Jesus Christ, superstar. No one knows who you are, and shout out to Mateo for asking. How did I miss that? I was on that show, by the way. I completely missed Mateo asking Dan if he wanted to have sex with aliens.
I've seen enough Star Trek to understand that that's always a good question to ask.
You're right. Right. Health and long life. Live long and prosper, y'all. Oh my gosh. Moving right along. Yes, moving right along. Let's go into our third segment. Josh, you are taking us into this one as well. So shoot.
Once again, we have conservatives and wanted to ban books. We recently had them trying to get rid of Mouse, and now they're trying to get rid of This Book is Gay, which is a book that actually would be helpful for gay students. Apparently, there's a lot there. Well, I don't know about you, but when I was taking sex education in high school, we weren't learning about anything other than the heteronormative stuff. I didn't think anything of that at the time. Reading articles like this, you realize just how you got to start thinking outside of your own comfort zone and start thinking about how other people are getting educated. But this school board and some other school boards around the country are like, no, we gotta act like gay people don't exist and eventually they'll disappear. Because we all know that the only reason why anybody ever turned gay is because they read a book that said that was an option. Maybe they saw Dharma, Will and Grace. They're like, maybe that's for me. There's no biology involved apparently. So they've been trying to get this banned here. They're also trying to get other LGBTQ, always stumble over acronyms, books out of circulation. Even on one of these articles, they wanted things even a little bit sexually explicit taken away, like nothing above hand holding, maybe a little bit of kissing. I think if there's a peck on the cheek, they'll allow it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh my goodness. So I remember taking sexual education when I was last back in the day in Roman Catholic school with school uniforms, plaid, Buster Browns and everything. And I also remember how the conversations that were in sexual education concerning sex and the conversations that I were having with my friends were completely different. And they were wrought with misinformation on both sides. Either you had like half-baked ideas from my friends to say that if you did this and if you did that, it's totally cool, to, no sex before marriage. Moving on. So, so like, and oh yeah, and there were pictures, but they were, this is what the guy has and this is what the gal has, and okay, but no pokey pokey. Shout out to Richard Gillifer. No pokey pokey before the wedding ring, no ding ding. So
I at least never had the wedding ring talk in my school. Maybe that's California progressive in that we did get talk about where you're putting everything, but there was no talk about where you're putting a ring. At the very least, that's our progressive side.
Well, we had to go through the sacraments. Remember Catholic school, and one of the sacraments, and even though like I believe that marriage wasn't a sacrament until like the 13th century, since it was considered a sacrament, we had to, the nuns who were teaching us sexual education, you can already imagine what my upbringing was like, was really pushing that whole thing.
The nuns are giving sexual education when they've had none of it themselves.
Well, Josh, they had lives before they, took their oath. So it was a possibility that they, got down with the sticky for the icky, but, and they decided to go ahead and teach us young ladies, all about
the habit,
the fact of life, the facts of life. Yes. Not to get into the habit, but boom ching. But but it's one to like preface this particular article comes from I believe NewJersey.com, written by Vashti Harris, and it was actually posted on January 26th. Make sure you guys check it out. Links in the show notes below. But they also
they vote against it, didn't they?
They did vote against it, but the fact that they tried is already problematic to me.
Well, but also like I wanted to preface this, and Neil, come to you after this, that it wasn't necessarily they were banning the book from like the curriculum. They were banning the book from even being able to be in the library.
Yeah, in the library. They're not going to teach this stuff, and then they're like, you're not going to allow you to learn it yourself either.
Yeah, which is crazy. But yeah, Neil, give me thoughts.
Well, when I see reading all these links that we have for the show and whatnot, it surprised me that Washington State was on board with this. Because I live right above Washington State. Mm-hmm. And when I hear that they wanted to pull books from the libraries of schools and stuff like that, or in the middle schools anyways, I thought, wait a minute. I've always been under the impression that Washington State and Oregon and California, for that matter, have all been fairly progressive. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that this was kind of a thing that they're considering down there, it blew me away.
There is even in progressive, so-called progressive areas, I'm putting up air quotes again for the people who are listening to the podcast, progressive areas, there are still folk who happen to have more conservative ideologies that are going from state to state and actually like launching their own campaigns against, books that, teach or talk about, sex, in the way,
in general.
Yes, through sexual orientation and gender equality. Now, I remember another book that one of the articles actually mentioned was Lawn Boy. And I remember like specifically in Virginia, because like I had a couple of friends that wanted to involve some of our advocacy in helping to ban this book from being in the library, and saying that, well, it was pornographic. Now I decided to, I saw like some of the pictures that that they were putting up, like some of like this the like 1 million moms, like it was like a 1 million mom member that was putting up like some of the pictures and showing like, look how graphic it is. And yes, it was graphic as far as like some of the 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 photos that they were showing, even though they were like drawn, it wasn't like actual, and they were showing like
Pictures,
sexual acts.
photos,
Yeah, they
yeah,
were
yeah,
showing sexual acts that, people who happen to be, possibly the same gender or or even trans were doing to one another. But the thing about it is like, when I was reading more about the book itself, because like they kept on saying that this book is for children, but it's not. Like they specifically targeted to, teenagers who have like a bit more of a developed, mindset, and or who are curious about, sex.
puberty and beyond.
Yeah, puberty and beyond is basically what the book was like. It wasn't like for a 5-year-old. So I told her point blank, I said, I'm sorry, honey, I'm not gonna get on board with this, because like I wish that we had more comprehensive curriculum around sex education when I was younger. And I think that and why we are not really having these conversations like that, whether if it is heterosexual relationships, homosexual relationships, gender fluid relationships, and the like. We should be be able to actually have these conversations with children, so that they are, well, not like young kids, but when they start to get interested, so that they won't be steered in the wrong direction, or even like develop psychoses about themselves.
The stigma needs to be removed on all these kinds of things, especially like the gay or lesbian relationships and all that kind of stuff, because when they're coming into who they are probably around their early teens,
Right.
and they need to know that there's nothing wrong if a guy likes a guy or a girl likes a girl, or they don't identify with what they were called at birth. All those things need to be okay. They like people, but we live in a society where people are freaking out about Disney movies with a background character that happens to be slightly gay. They're not going to want people reading books about it where they can get like instructions on how to do this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Two things here.
Yeah,
I
go
want
ahead.
to sort of. They don't have see this whole thing about pulling the books because the wrong kids might get a hold of it. Well, that's up to the school to make sure that the librarians in general don't allow kids under a certain age to be able to check out those books.
Right.
And also, crap, I forgot my other one.
Well, in the Washington example that you gave, they actually had her bring in the books that were sexually explicit to the principal's office so they could go over them. And they're like, you brought these, you didn't even bring the worst stuff. There's probably like some penis talk in another one of these that's going too far for them.
Right. Well, apparently, these kinds of things do happen across North America, all over the place. They're not talked about very much when people are pulling books off the shelves that they consider to be a little bit too much, right? So it happens, but it's rarely reported. So
right.
I don't know, because it seems lately that's what we're getting every week. There seems to be a new book that's getting on people's spotlight that they want to get rid of it. I like during recent protests, I've seen books that they wanted to get rid of it. It seems like they're always trying to get whatever is the important book to the narrative that they disagree with off the bookshelves, either in libraries or just like out of hands of people that could be influenced on it. And this doesn't seem like anything new. This seems like old hat for the people that want to censor lifestyles that they don't agree with or points that they don't agree with.
That's exactly
right. Yeah, like same shit, different day. I mean, like we even seen this with like the upheaval against critical race theory. You have like and it's kind of interesting that some of the same people that's involved with pulling books who teach about sex to LGBTQ teens and the like are also behind wanting to whitewash history. I mean, like, just think about it. Like, some of them, they don't want you to talk about Frederick Douglass. They don't want you to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King. They don't even want you to talk about Susan B. Anthony. I mean, child, please come on now.
But they do want to quote Martin Luther King, like air quote him for their purpose, but they don't want you using it with the right context.
Oh, it's the same one is quoted every year, and shout out to, it is Black History Month. Woohoo! But but the same one that's quoted all the time, but that's misquoted is judging people by the content, not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character, to really to push like colorblind notions, which is bullshit. Like, no, you see color because like it comes up in your policies. And you also people and we have a problem in the world, in the United States and in worldly, about othering people when they don't necessarily fit in your niche of what basically a cisgender white man is supposed to be. If you're not that, then there's a problem with you. And unfortunately, we're even seeing this type of ideology repeated when it comes to like, banning these books, where it can actually really help kids that, again, like I was talking about, that could really like develop like, issues with their own identities, because how they feel and how they see themselves is not accepted.
They don't even have like good standing for taking away some of these books. We had another article that mentioned Mississippi, where a mayor was withholding $110,000 from funding from a library until they got rid of all sexually explicit books that they didn't agree with, all the gay, lesbian books that they thought were promoting lifestyles that they didn't want. And the only way that he could justify it was we don't even have to reach us. He said he did it because of his Christian faith. He couldn't allow this as a Christian. So like sometimes you gotta like read between the lines, but this guy just like put it right out there for us to see. Yeah, this is Christian bigotry.
Exactly.
J Mike could put a little blurb in there as well about if the board was willing to make a committee to remove the books. I challenge the board to convene a committee to write a sex education curriculum for queer students. Right?
I'd be really surprised. I'd be really surprised to see that. They don't want books telling it to them that they can check out with their own resources. They're not going to have any kind of sexual education that's going to come from their lips. They're just going to say, if they were going to give the gay sexual experience, they'd say, this is a man. They don't go near each other. So that I wouldn't trust them to give a good education on this subject. Even like that's a little optimistic. I think that's going a little bit too trusting on what they're willing to do in a compromise.
Yeah, and not just to round this out, because we just want to move it along because we're running out of time. I don't even have watch on.
Yeah.
But I did want to also read the last thing that J Mike wrote. And I believe that he took this from one of the quotes. He said, apparently your considered book committee has quite the imagination, because it is recommended removing this learning opportunity for the district nearly 2,500 student readers. Gep said, how did I, an ignorant youth, come across this information? I used the tools that this district has so generously supplied our library research databases. Thank you for your resources.
That was perfect, throwing it in their face, exactly like what that kid should have been using. And well, he should have been getting more, but this is what he's smart enough to utilize on his own, and they're trying to take that away. It's horrible.
Absolutely.
It is horrible. And another story to definitely watch. I mean, like anytime that you're like anytime that you're like banning books and you're banning knowledge, you're doing our youth a disservice. Remember, there was a time period that there was a group of people in the United States that wasn't even allowed to learn how to read, or they could like lose their life. We have to, I think that, we really have to start taking inventory about who we are as a people. And I believe that's a perfect segue for our last but final, final segment. It's either Christian nationalism or democracy. You can't have both. Now, this comes from the article that I just mentioned from Only Sky Media. Matter of fact, just an aside, that the Only Sky Media is now the new home of atheist writers that used to be on Patheos. So you all make sure you guys check this out. And this particular article was written by Marcus Johnson, and it's an opinion piece. And basically, he was talking about how there is a growing faction of folk they call basically have traversed from white evangelical to Christian nationalists, who has a tendency to be quite problematic in their political ideologies. They have a tendency to be a bit more xenophobic. They have a tendency to have more ideas that are considered racist. And they also have a tendency to storm the Capitol on January 6th to say that the elections were rigged. And and I just wanted to mention that, one of the things that we kind of forget, I think, sometimes, and 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 I was even thinking about this specifically when we were talking, because we've been talking about Christian nationalists on the nonprofits for a while now.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that some people kind of get surprised, I suppose, about them even existing. But I think that we forget that Christian nationalist ideas have been around just as long as there have been the United States and beyond. Because like there's going to be certain you know political, theological, whatever type of leanings that people of this ilk happen to possess. And they even have like some of the same things that they may balk against, like with other religions, like let's just say for instance Islam, Islamic religions, or being Muslim, about, well, we don't want Sharia law. But this is exactly the same type of
They
of
just want their
notion or
version of it.
idea that they want to bring, but they want to do it in a Christian worldview, right? Now, I even talk about this particular author. His name is Robert P. Jones. He is the CEO of PRRI. And also, he is the author of this wonderful book called White Too Long. I recommend everybody check it out. But one of the things that they quoted in this particular article was that he said, for more than 2 decades, I've studied the attitudes of religiously affiliated Americans across the country. And year over year, in question after question and public opinion polls, a clear pattern has emerged. White Christians are consistently more likely than whites who are religiously unaffiliated to deny the existence of structural racism. And this is and I'd really just like, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to everybody else, but this is something that we just really just have to think about, like, who, if you're going to say that we're going to open it up, that this idea of being like, I guess like Christian nationalist or what have you, is should be acceptable, but we still want a democracy, which will be encompassing of a plethora of different ideas. What do we want?
Well, these are the people that you see with the most flags hanging from their trucks. They like the ideology of, like, this is America, this is democracy. They love this, but they don't actually like the ideas behind democracy. But they've been in charge of things for so long that they're not even thinking about them being outside of that democracy has changed, or that the people have changed, and that the will of the people is no longer their will anymore. So that's why you get the white Christian nationalists suddenly having problems. Like, it's been going our way for so long. The election couldn't have gone that way. Obviously, it was rigged because we're winners. But occasionally, you fucking lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you on that, Josh, completely. And I was going to say something very similar. Is they've gotten so used to having their own way here. They've gotten so used to being the ones, quote unquote, in charge and making the rules and stuff like that. And now that people are saying, hey, look, sit the fuck down, because you're not the only ones that are capable of running the show here. And now they're freaking out about it. And that's why I think we're hearing a lot more voices in that sort of spectrum of hatred, or whatever you want to put it, because they've lost control. Not completely, obviously, but it's coming, and they're not going to be the ones that are the powerhouse politicians and governors and etc.
Well, the ideology may be in the minority, but another issue that
But they're loud.
they're loud and they're organized, because what I was going to say is that a lot of lawmakers in local areas are writing laws to actually expand this Christian national type idea. I mean, this is why we're seeing abortion rights being, chipped away at and on the state and municipal levels. This is why we're seeing, at least about, I want to say the last time I checked, there was like over 15 or 20 states that have like some type of either voting on bills to ban CRT in their public schools, or they are or they're in talk, or they or have actually passed laws to ban CRT, teaching of it, even though I keep saying this, but CRT is not taught in schools, y'all. I'm just trying to, it's history. It's history. And also we're even seeing like, the banning of transgender students from playing sports. Like, this and like all of this is because these are the people that's like actually in seats of power. I mean, and they have been planning this stuff for a long time. Matter of fact, I want to quote something from the article that stated that Christian nationalists are increasingly attracted to
Authoritarian.
Yes, authoritarianism. Say that 5 times fast. And a political system where one small group makes the political decisions and the rest of society is shut out. In a Christian nationalist vision of America, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, and other marginalized groups will have fewer political rights and won't be able to fully participate. Christians would make the political decisions, they would control the social order, and they would dominate the culture. Enforcing this kind of system would be akin to erasing generations of social and cultural progress in the United States, and it would mean reverting back to a political system of a century ago where women and racial minorities were not able to fully participate in American democracy.
Yeah.
What's terrifying is this is a base that, like, they're not the highest numbers, but they're more motivated than almost all the other bases that I talk to. I'm mostly friends with people on the left, but they showed up for the last presidential election, and that's about it. And then you get all the power in other areas of the government that's being ignored by our side. And the people that are Christian nationalists, they're motivated. They're taking every little chip of the government that they can get to hold on to this power. And like you mentioned that CRT isn't taught in schools, but they're going to use that as a talking point anyways, because it scares old white people into voting for them.
I mean, that's how Youngkins got into office. He said that he was going to ban transgender students from playing in sports, and he was going to ban CRT, and he was going to ban abortion. And people was like, "Yes, let's put him." And then like they said, "Well, he has a black lieutenant governor, but she just as bad as him because she's a black woman that's saying basically the same problematic rhetoric." And that's not going to be the thing that's going to move us forward. But Neil, take it away.
Well, as my notes has said, as a Canadian, I kind of feel bad for you guys because it seems like your whole political spectrum there is circling the drain. You know what I mean? So you can't have religious influence in government. It's just it's always been problematic, and it always will be problematic. That's I made a note that reading some of these stories, it led me to thinking shades of The Handmaid's Tale. Like it's just like a theocracy is going to end up taking over you guys down there, and it scares the crap out of me because a lot of people up here in Canada, like I personally had a relative that said, "Oh, I miss Trump." What?
It's weird, but I've heard of people like all the way in Australia that are backing that kind of a mindset.
That's ridiculous.
I've seen marches in even Asian countries for Trump. I've seen marches in Nigeria for and in support of Trump. And and one of the things that I wanted to also bring up is that some of the issues that that is allowing these notions to prevail is folk who may consider themselves progressive or leftists or what have you have kind of a laissez-faire way of that they think about politics. And I mean, like, I know that I haven't been all my life a person that paid attention to politics. That kind of happened much later in life because I saw that when you don't pay attention to politics, you get, people like Trump, and you get people like Youngkins, and you get people who are not, and even on considered like people who are on the left, who say they're leftist, but their politics don't, reflect that.
Don't adhere
Like,
to that. Yeah.
yeah, they don't adhere to that. I mean, they, we even see this, like, in the Senate now, like, people who say, well, I'm Democrat, but like they're voting, very, I don't even say like conservative leaning, but they vote alt right. And some of the things that they happen to, really cleave to is alt right. And it would behoove us all to really, start to like pay attention to this stuff. And then like when you like have like people who may be in like these governmental positions who say that they're left, but they're kind of like, apathetic when it comes to being more to paying more attention and really listening to their constituency, then you have their constituency leaving them because they think that they don't care about them.
That's
and
right.
and this is why this type of thing prevails.
The problem is the left isn't willing to fight dirty, and the right definitely has shown that they're willing to bend the rules to fit their narrative. That's why they got a Supreme Court justice in under the wire when we had a bigger time frame for Obama to get somebody in before 45 came in. So like we need to be fighting a little bit more aggressive. I'm not saying like go completely dirty, but like if they've exploited something, the left needs to exploit, and then we need to take it on the individual level. Like for the longest time, I wasn't very political at all, and it was so much nicer in life. I was so much happier being ignorant. But if you look at me, I'm one of those people that could afford to be ignorant. And then as soon as I caught on to the world around me, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like, I'm saying I support minorities, but I'm not doing anything about it. So I'm part of the problem. So eventually I had to step up into it. And we need more people having that light bulb go off in their head and start taking action on every level of the political system. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
Well, I just want to say that you gotta make sure that you don't get people into positions where they can lead other people into believing that they can now voice their opinions on racism and bigotry and transphobia or whatever. Like it's okay to call these people out or make jokes about them or just trash on them in general. Because if you're like that as a constituent or a governor or even a president, like good old 45 there, now you've opened it so that people say, oh, so I can actually say stuff like this now. It's okay to be a douchebag now. All right, well, hey, I'm gonna open my douchebag up wide and show the world how much of a jerk I actually am.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just round out this whole thing with shout out to J Mike when he said it's crazy to think that there can even possibly favor a false narrative that makes them or Christian nationalists feel that they can justify their potential racism, homophobia, and transphobia.
He put it much more eloquently than I did.
Right. And actually, I just want to go back a little bit. He said, given that these facts are easily accessible, like, when he talks about the rhetoric, it appears that we have to figure out a way to really hammer this point home so there's no false foundational basis for Christians to find themselves in so comfortably to be able to tout their particular notions that are extremely problematic.
I like the sounds of a hammer. That works.
Yeah, bang. I'm all about that.
Attitude adjustment tool.
Exactly. We're going to put that in like an emoji or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, this was like a great conversation, everybody. And I really do appreciate Neil and Josh joining on here to talk about stuff. And before we actually roll out, y'all, I want to really tell everybody to, let's continue these conversations. And one way that you can do that is by joining our fan social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. If you find yourself also shopping at Amazon, if you're into that kind of thing, why don't you go ahead and support us? You can support the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. Be sure. Oh, wait, I have to go back. My bad. So the way that you do that is when you're shopping at Amazon, shop by using smile.amazon.com and selecting, yes, the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. And be sure to use that link to help out the ACA. We really do appreciate it. And y'all, check this out. Every time that I've been on this chair, and I'm literally on a chair, and other folk have been in the hot seat, they have been telling you, and this is so true, that we value your feedback. So please tell us what you like and what you don't like in the comments, or email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. And we really, and check this out. If you email us to comment about stuff that you heard us say, we'll actually read it on air, and we will give you a shout out. And Josh is going to send you something in the mail.
I don't remember that.
Let's just go with that.
We need a little disclaimer. Yeah, Josh will not send you anything in the mail.
Says Josh, I suppose. Well, before we roll out, Neil, Josh, did you have any other final thoughts or anything that you wanted to add to your commentary before we roll up out of here?
Sure thing. Let people be who they are. Stop banning books that could be very, very helpful to people. Let the government be what it's supposed to be and stop influencing it with your beliefs. And of course, from the top, no, that's all I got.
and we really want to thank Josh for coming on as a guest host. Thank you. Hopefully we can just continue to get you in the rotation, because you have such wonderful commentary to offer. But what are your final thoughts?
I'll come back anytime you guys want to have me. I don't know why you would, but as long as you guys have poor judgment, I'll keep on abusing that. I thought this was we gotta make sure people have their epistemology in order. You do not get your information from a comic. You do not vet your spokespeople through a comic who doesn't know who's on the up on science and everything. And there you go. Be, like Neil said, the rest of these, don't be a shitty person. Start caring about people.
Exactly. Everybody remember you're part of a community, and
you might enjoy the ride better too.
Yeah. Right. But even in the community, it's always asked, where do atheists or people get your morals from? And we get it from wanting to make sure that we live in a society where there is equity, and we also want well-being for everybody. Exactly. And with that said, everybody, thank you again for watching another episode of the Nonprofits. We thank you guys for tuning in. We thank you for subscribing. We thank you for liking. We thank you for doing all of that. And until next time, we are out of here.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242, or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.